pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Let the record show that all members of the City Council are present tonight. There is a copy of the Open Meetings Act posted on the west wall of the meeting room and is accessible to members of the public at any time during the course of this meeting. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the City Council and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member or citizen so requests. First item on the agenda is item A, approve agenda as submitted. Item B, receive and place on file all notices pertaining to this meeting. Item C, receive and place on file all materials having any bearing on this meeting. Item D, approval of minutes of special meeting on August 24th, 2015, as on file in the city clerk's office. And item E, approval, change order number 1, a decrease in the amount of $350, and final contract price of $160,638 to Ditch Diggers for the Highway 77 Big Blue Water Main Crossing Project as recommended by the Board of Public Works. Mr. Catlin?
Everybody want anything pulled off?
Anybody want anything pulled off the agenda? Anybody from the public? Mr. Catlin?
All righty. Mayor, I move that all the items listed under the consent agenda be approved, accepted, and ratified as presented.
Been moved by Catlin, seconded by Bilsbach, that all items under the consent agenda be approved, and your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. There are no public hearings. The next item on the agenda is resolution number 5806, implementing the Beatrice Sidewalk Improvement Program.
Mayor, I move that resolution number 5806 be passed and adopted.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Cook, that resolution number 5806 be passed and adopted. Discussion.
Again, this is the plan we talked about a week ago on the Sidewalk Improvement Program. And just as a recap, it's a program that has both a partial reimbursement up to 25% with a maximum of $1,500, or a loan, which is a 4-year loan, can't exceed $5,000. Those are the two programs that would be available.
And it's available to commercial, residential, industrial, and any new construction, they have to adhere to the regulations that are set forth in that any new construction would have new sidewalks, new approaches to driveways. Ted?
So, a couple of questions. First of all, do we have a cap?
The cap will be what you end up putting into the budget, so that'll be the cap.
Okay, we haven't put any money into the
No, we have not put an amount in the
These are
budget.
general fund dollars.
Correct. General fund dollars, correct.
Are we, for lack of a better word, are we targeting any? I mean, are we sending out a letter saying, look, you're not adhering to our present code? You have a structure, you have curb and gutter, paved street in front of your house or your business. You should have had a sidewalk. Are we sending out a letter and saying, you might want to get in on this?
I think the process, and this is my opinion, is to incentivize those that have issues in front of their properties. And with this incentive, it's a program that we're trying to work with the property owners. If in fact we don't get basically what we're looking for, then we do have codes in place that would take care of it.
Well, I did get one phone call about it, that somebody wants to do it, wants to be involved in it, so.
Good.
Yeah, good, thanks.
Rich?
On the new construction end, does this have any with TIF funding? If we have some developers wanting to put in the new construction they're required to put in, would that affect the TIF funding at all?
No, it would not impact TIF funding, and the only areas where you have TIF are some limited areas in town. TIF isn't available to the entire community,
Yeah.
but this would not impact the TIF program if they wish to use that program.
Any other questions? Rick?
I like the program. I think we need to do it. I've had someone ask me about like a corner building that would be a lot of sidewalk. I mean, you'd mentioned earlier that you guys had done one line of sidewalk there on
Sixth and Lincoln?
Sixth and Lincoln. That had amounted to like $30,000 or something like that. Was it 30 or 10?
10.
10, all right, $10,000. But somebody with a corner lot might, I'm not talking about ourselves or anything, but a corner lot might amount to a lot more money, above the 5,000 that our limit was. So I really don't know how much interest we're going to have in this. I hope we have a ton of interest, and I hope the interest is from people that have sidewalks that are really in bad disrepair. I don't know how many years ago, I think Mayor Marstead was in office, that the city went out and actually marked sidewalks that needed to be replaced. And was there any incentive for some of you guys that have been on here a long time? Was there an incentive for
It
them
was in
to?
93, or it was in 92, 93, 94, one of those in the early 90 years. This was my first term. And the only incentive was we were forcing you to do it.
Yeah, there was no
No.
city.
There was no monetary incentive.
No monetary incentive. It was simply, you're in violation of city code and we're going to enforce city code. But he broke it down into, at that time, I should say he, but at that time it was broken down into areas. So he broke the city down into like 4 different sections. And he said, we're going to enforce it in this area, and then this and this. And it was a 2 or 3 year plan to get it all done. So, yeah, it's a good deal. This is a good deal. I agree with you, Rick.
I think the next question is, how much money do we want to put into the fund? And is this something that could be modified as time goes on?
Oh, absolutely. And it's certainly something you can modify if you see the program's going well and wish to move the funding up in future budget years, or seeing it's not being utilized and wish to decrease. So
Doesn't the resolution say $50,000?
the resolution just
For
states.
one time I saw 50,000 somewhere, maybe.
I think we talked about that. I think that was just an example at our last meeting.
The resolution just states that funding will begin with the FY 16-17 budget and biennial budget, and so that number is to be decided by you guys, hopefully yet tonight.
Will they be able to, say they've got a corner lot, and the first part is $5,000, they borrow $5,000, they pay it back. Then will they be able to borrow another, can they take a double dip out of it to do the other side?
Not in the same year.
But in the next year, they could apply again,
There's
correct?
nothing in here that would prevent them from doing that. We do state on page 13 in your package is, I live on a corner lot, and am I eligible for additional funding? Answer is no. The limit's the limit, regardless how big the project is. But obviously, you could do one side one year and come back and do the next side the next year. There's nothing to prevent you from doing that in the program.
So in the same thought as that, though, what if someone has a really long section of block and they do one half, get the credit, and then do half again next year and credit again?
Yes.
And not complete the project?
Yes.
What if I did this myself, and do I need to show you proof what it costs?
Yes.
My man hours is really sky high if I have to do concrete. I mean, people are gonna pad the numbers on this real horribly. I'm sure if it's only a smaller, I don't have a clue what it would cost you to do 50 foot or 80 foot of sidewalk. But if I'm gonna do it myself, it's gonna be the very maximum I can get.
I had Googled sidewalk improvement projects around the country, and there was one that did have a limit on how much they would pay per square foot on concrete. A lot of cities didn't pay for anything, but this was, I think it was in the Chicago area, that was like, if I remember right, $4 or something per square foot. How much is concrete? $4 or so? But they did have a limit on that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about, but some projects did have something like that.
Our estimates are around the 53 feet is what you could cover with about $1,500. So,
So the $1,500 cash back kind of thing, is that, so they have to spend how much to get that? I mean, that's the maximum allowed, but, I mean, there's a, yeah. And I apologize, because I didn't.
It's 25% of the project up to $1,500.
And I apologize, I've been gone since Thursday night, I didn't pick up my packet, so I apologize for that, I don't have the information, so I'm winging it. That's why I'm asking the questions.
Any other questions? Rich?
I appreciate what Rick said, but we don't want to make this thing too complicated. We want to keep it simple so they'll use it, and, you know, we don't want to put limits and
Well, if you
stuff.
looked at the application's really simple and brief.
Yeah, and somebody's going to be reviewing that application, so if somebody's trying to pad us or get by, that should show up in the application, I would think. Because, what does, Jimmy, what does it cost to lay that, you know? Can you,
Right now, four-inch sidewalk has been average about $4 to $4.50 per square foot.
labors and materials?
Yeah, so what I'm getting at, if you have a 4-foot wide sidewalk, so per linear foot, you're looking at $16 per linear foot. So,
That pretty well puts us right on track. If they are wanting more than that, we should question the application. But let's keep it as simple as can be, so they'll use it.
As far as your application, do you put this in before you do the work or after you get the job done?
Well, you'd have to have the permittings
Yeah.
of the work.
So would this still be before cost comes in? Do you apply for this?
In theory, you could probably do it either way. Obviously, if I'm going to ask for a loan, I probably don't have the funds maybe to do the project first, and so I'd apply for it first to make sure I get the money so I can pay for the materials and any labor. If I'm looking for the reimbursement, it's certainly something you could fill out later, do the job first, and then submit your receipts and get reimbursed afterwards.
And each of these will have to be with the building inspector's approval then, right?
They have to be
Process?
either billing inspector or somebody's approval. I mean, it'll be somebody in the office.
Sidewalks don't go in at 1 inch thick concrete or something.
That's right.
a permit.
In here, it requires that you meet all of our city codes, so yes, you'll have to meet ADA, and you'll have to make sure that it's the proper thickness and setback, and all those requirements will have to be met.
Any other comments? Bob?
You know, that $50,000 sum would cover 33 full 1,500 investments, so maybe that's a great place to start.
I thought it is, I think it is too.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
So if we have 53 applicants, who's going to be is there a group or an individual in charge of picking which 33 of the 53?
Probably first come, first serve. Be the fairest way to do it. Anybody from the audience? All right. I'd ask for your vote, please, with the inclusion that we have a maximum of $50,000 to begin with.
We'll put that, when we talk about the budget, we'll make that motion.
Very good.
Then.
All right. All right, your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. Resolution number 5806 has been passed and adopted. There are no ordinances tonight. The next item is the public forum. Purpose of the public forum is for the presentation of an item by the general public to the city council for consideration at a later date. No discussion or action will be taken by the city council at this time. Is there anyone here for the public forum? All right, next item is item number 7, biennial budget for 2016 and 17.
Again, last time we went over the budget, at least gave you the high points of the budget. Come back, ask if there's any questions, if you have any follow-up, and if you do have any proposed changes or amendments, we'd like to make those tonight so that Linda can get her budget notice in the paper. And so we are prepared for that at our next city council meeting in 8 days from today. So.
One thing that we talked a little bit about is maybe the inclusion of a couple of additional staff members for our Parks Department. If you would pass these out. The administrative staff has put some numbers together on what that would look like. Do you have a copy? You want to describe those
Yeah, I can walk through what we have here. And Linda, I'll ask you to come up because you helped put together these numbers. From talking to some council members, what we heard were some different ideas they'd like to explore. The first one that we just labeled option A was if you were to hire 2 full-time employees. What we did is we split them for 1.5 full-time employees in the Public Properties Department and a half-time employee in the Building Inspections Department. What you'll see is then Linda figured up what the cost would be for those 2 employees. We have some part-time salaries that we would then reduce with the additional full-time help, and you see the net impact in FY16 and FY17. Option B looks at it and says if you hire just simply 1 full-time person in the Public Properties Department, what that cost would be. You still see the reduction in part-time salaries in the Public Properties Department, but you see that the Building Inspection Department retains their part-time budget. So again, we would anticipate if we just hired 1 person, they may just work solely in the Public Properties Department. Option C is the sidewalk program we just discussed. And funding level at that point, we put in $50,000. The general fund is impacted by A, B, and C. And so you see, we talk about if you do options A and C, what that impact is, and if you do B and C, what that impact is. We don't anticipate you'll do A and B because that would be 3 full-time employees, and I think that's more than what we discussed. And then option D is one that Councilman Kerr had talked about, and that has to do with the skate park and trying to do all of it in 1 year rather than splitting it over 2 years. The reason that one is listed separately is because that money is coming out of Keno funds, not out of the general fund.
Comments?
Yeah, on the part-time and the full-time employees for, I guess we ought to just ask the 2 supervisors how they'd want to work the thing. From inspections and Mark and Rob. Well, what do you guys want to do? What will work for you? What's going to make the thing work for you guys?
We've talked a little bit about me having 1 full and then him using half of the other one, me having 1.5 basically, and him using the half. That's kind of what we talked about too. So
Yeah, we've discussed it a number of different times, and I've discussed with a few of you guys. I feel that 10 hours minimum would be something that I could use regularly for all 52 weeks out of the year, whether that's part-time or half-time. I'm not sure much matters. If you had 2 full-time employees, one working half-time with me and half-time with him and a full-time with him, that would be add some versatility, or if we did get into a situation where we needed 12, 16, 18 hours in 1 week from inspections, that could happen. Maybe some versatility when I was on vacation or something like that to maybe even pick up an inspection or 2. It would just add that element to it.
Would your part-time guy have to have any kind of licensings or anything?
The part-time guy we'd probably send to get his property maintenance certification. It should be fairly easy to obtain. Could be done probably in less than
Cost factor's not that big a deal.
a couple $100.
Well, I know you guys, you got the weeds and everything else. And we are looking at some new code enforcement stuff. We've got a committee up right now, and if some of that goes to fruition, you're going to need some help. I know you're going to need some help. But I don't know.
Okay.
I think Rob was
Lloyd?
one of the ones to talk to you too. I think we need to do at least a part-time position on code enforcement. I think one of the biggest things when you enter Beatrice is how the city looks. And not saying you're not doing a good job, but I think we're falling behind on weeds and on buildings and stuff like that, that you're doing the major stuff. We need someone to do some of the footwork. So that's where I'm really pushing for a few hours at least on your end.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've got somewhere around 700 code violations since January 1st this year.
How many?
About 700, which is quite a few. I know the effort that I put into them, it could be more, but there's just not enough time in the day to do all of it. With that and building inspections on a regular basis, just part of the deal, I guess. Like I said, if I had somebody 10 hours a week, I feel like we could stay on top of that if we did that all year long. I don't want to look at doing somebody for 6 months out of the year, just for weed season, if you will. You know, you got cases going all year long with, you know, from junk motor vehicles and property issues, not just weeds.
Seen some lately too, with code enforcement rules and stuff that we have. You probably need to have some time to do some paperwork too, to upgrade some of the, what we have. I know it's pretty awful. About a month ago, right before school started, about 3 blocks north here, there's a big tree branch that blocked the sidewalk, and it's up there for about 3 weeks because it takes so long for us to process everything. Maybe you can streamline some of the.
There's some areas that we could improve efficiency, and, you know, obviously having more help would do that. But some of our processes are what they are, with our notices that we have to give. Those they just take that time, but we have to give property owners that amount of time.
Phil?
This is probably for Tobias. How much do we have in our Keno fund that we can take an additional?
Let me grab the book here.
26,000? I've been looking, but I have not found it. Oh, I just found it. Never mind.
It does have a balance.
It's on pages 1 and 2. Page 1 and 2, if you go to the consolidated fund balances,
I went clear to the back.
and you find the Keno fund, which is about 1/3 the way down.
So,
We start out this year with 62,000,
I have to put,
end it with 47, and then after 2 years, end with 54. Then you go to the second page. That is in relation to the skate park.
Right. That's part of this discussion.
right.
Okay.
It's 26.
Yep.
I like the idea of the skate park. I just don't know if I want to take Keno funds down that far for one project. It just seems like a little excessive to me.
Don't we have FEMA funds, aren't they looking at FEMA funds for that Keno, or the skate park too?
We are still talking to them. We
So
don't
if
know what
that
the
would
answer is
come-
yet.
If that would come to fruition, we could always replace the Keno funds with the FEMA funds that we received for that, correct?
Yeah, I would think so.
Couldn't we do that
See,
with it?
yeah, but FEMA's only gonna bring it back to pre-flood condition, which is
Would-
estimating what it would take to make it a wooden structure again. And
Yes.
then you do an alternate project and say, no, we don't wanna do that, we wanna do metal. But we don't even know if they'll consider it yet, because we haven't talked to them.
Like I said, the skateboard park, that thing is used, there's somebody down there every night. Those kids use it all the time. And instead of bringing them down 2 or 3 times to set it up stuff, I would think we'd just get it done. And,
We currently have it in there, Phil, the skate park, 50,000 in year 1 and 50,000 in year 2, both out of Keno. So it
Okay.
was all come 100,000 now. Mark originally thought 76,000 would replace 3 pieces, but there is an extra piece.
There is an
that
extra
would-
piece.
It might take up the full 100 if we do all of it. They're just wanting to do it in 1 year to save shipping,
Freight, shipping, freight.
shipping and freight.
Ted?
So, and I appreciate that, Phil, because it was the same question I was going to ask. So, about the employee that you guys intend to split. So, the code enforcement officer, it's needed for what reason, I guess? Is that because we can't write the tickets, we can't follow up on it? I would imagine that once the code's been violated and someone's been written a ticket, that turns over to Greg. So if we have police officers that are actually writing code tickets because they have the ability to write code tickets today, it's city code, that's a city crime. The police officer can go out and write a ticket for it. He can go out and observe that they have this problem or that problem, he can write a ticket for it. Do we need that part-time employee to do that? So, I mean, why are we hiring somebody else to do something that we're already paying somebody else to do? Would be my one question. The other question I would have is, and I don't mean to seem rude here, but you have a building inspector or department heads here speaking to individual councilmen about a problem they have in their department and how to fund it. That's not how this works. I have one employee, and that's Tobias. They go to Tobias, they tell him what the problem is, you tell us, you bring them in, we discuss it. I have a huge problem with that.
I disagree with that, Ted. I really think that it's our responsibility to listen to our department heads. And
That's why we have work sessions, for them to come and talk to us as a
Sure,
group.
sure. But I still don't have any issues with them visiting with myself individually,
Not
or if there are other councilmen present, I don't have a problem with that.
You wait, you will.
Well,
I think you will.
I don't think so. So I disagree with you, but I understand your point.
So, can someone answer me the question about having law enforcement actually write the tickets?
I would defer to Chief Lang if he wishes to speak on his law enforcement staff, and Rob can talk as well about what you envision this employee doing.
There's
in
an
the
attorney
regards.
here that wants to say something.
There's always an attorney who wants to talk.
I know there's always an attorney that wants to say it. The one concern that I can note, just because it ultimately comes to me, is the interaction between their two departments. And I know that Rob is continuing to work on the Cassell system for his implementation of his code enforcement and identification of that.
And I don't know what
Versus,
that is.
it's the same system that we do, handles our billing, similar.
We've had to step away from that.
Well, nevertheless, it's a different system than the system that Bruce is using, and my concern is the doubled up efforts that I have an officer out there who's driving around and goes, man, those weeds are really long, or that's a junk motor vehicle, or what else. And that's great that they identify it, but then they're handling it, they're going up, they're making the citation. They're going to need to they're going to have to send it back to the same channels that go through Rob anyways because of the requirements for notice and everything else. And if they're not there, publication and all the stuff that we have to do. Beyond the fact of identifying the issue, which the officers could do now, they could drive by and say, hey, send in a dispatch, let code inspections know that we got some tall weeds over here. And then it's still going to have to get handled through his, photographs through his, and everything else. Because the systems are different. So they can't just go out and write the ticket and turn it over. The only time we do that is usually, in some cases, after the violation. So a 21-day period for junk motor vehicle. After the 21 days, we'll have an officer go out and actually write a citation to some people. But initially, when they identify the problem, they're not going to write a citation for it. They're going to inform his office and Linda, and then they're going to follow the same process anyways. So that's something I identified in it. And so I just don't want them getting crossways and duplicating efforts because, I saw weeds here, and so now I'm writing tickets for it, and he's saw weeds a week ago, and he's working on it too, and their systems just don't interact. So that's one issue. It's
Rich?
not the only.
Well, we've had this discussion, and I'm not saying I don't agree with Ted on, I think every city employee, every councilman, even the public, if they see something, should report it. I agree with you 100%. But we've had this argument for 20 years. It ain't gonna happen. You know it's not gonna happen.
What is it?
That people are gonna start turning stuff in. It doesn't happen. We need to have somebody go out there and expressly have the job of doing it. And I think this, we had, what was that little guy's name that used to be here, Steve? He used to do that all the time, and we started getting caught up on some of this stuff. After Steve left, we've had one guy, and it's been overwhelming on him, and I think he needs the extra help. And as far as the other point you made, I like being able to go talk to my city supervisors. They're when I don't understand something, I'm going to go to the source. And I like having a good rapport with our city employees, and
We brought the chief up here. What was our question for him?
why he
Enjoying
couldn't,
this conversation, so I'm fine.
why he couldn't the police officers.
Well,
report these.
I guess I'll address that just briefly, and what we do now is if an officer sees a junk motor vehicle, that's primarily what officers deal with. We don't get into dilapidated buildings. Rob does that, but they'll refer that to Rob because then that starts the whole administrative process, and at the end of the process, you're right, the law enforcement writes the ticket, and we do that.
If I may. I'd just like to point out another one, and Rob can confirm this. Councilman Party noted the tree branch. I'm assuming this is the one over on 5th and Grant, near the apartment building over there. Nobody reported that to the city for days and days and days on end. And I believe the first person that called it in was probably me to Rob, if I'm incorrect. We may have had an informal discussion with the property owner, but I don't believe we got any calls on that one.
I don't think we did either, but I did see it within I think maybe the next day. I guess maybe the one thing where we could have shaved off 4 or 5 days was, we kind of had an informal discussion with the property owner. Nothing was done. At that point, it's 4 days later, we sent out the 5-day abatement letter.
And then ultimately we had the street department clean it
But
up.
this is part of my point, okay? You can't tell me that, I didn't see it, okay? You have something that's a code violation. You can't tell me that some city employee in some department, be it water department, electric department, police department, fire department, ambulance department, somebody didn't drive by it and say, maybe I should let somebody know. They drove by it and said, that's not my job. Okay, that's what I'm saying. Somebody drove by it. You can't tell me that a police officer didn't drive by 5th and Grant sometime in a 6-day period.
We're kind of getting off the subject here just a little bit. Whoever noticed the branch, whatever, it was cleaned up and taken care of. I think what we have before us is several options and what we want to do with those options. Whether it's option A, option C we've already talked about, and then the Keno funds, utilizing that for the skate park. I think we need to make a determination on what we want to do. Rick?
I think both you guys need more help. And I bet if I'd asked all these people out here, except for you, Dave, they would probably need more help too. But if we're trying to decide which option to go with, I'd probably go with B. And, you're going to have a part-time employee this summer that we'd already budgeted for, I guess, and you can maybe get rid of some of your part-time. Does that seem reasonable? And then readdress it next year. See, that would be if we're looking for opinion on which option would go, that would be the way I'd go probably.
So what you're saying is a full-time maintenance worker, but he would not be involved in the inspection department?
He's going to have a B would be just a part-time originally proposed, which you don't have right now, correct? So option B, I guess, is what I would.
Okay. Rich?
Just for clarification, he said for summer. Now, the money that you have for your part-time, will that keep that guy busy for 52? Is that what we're looking at, or what?
Yeah, I think we have $7,500 in there now, and I want to say, if that person with the part-time code was paid at $15 an hour, that would get us right around that 52 weeks out of the year.
At 10 hours a week?
10 hours a week.
And you think that'll work for you?
I think it will.
Okay, bud, that's what you think. And you okay with this? Well, then quit looking so grumpy. Damn, give the man a full-time guy, need one.
So I hear
I
some
agree.
saying option B.
I would agree.
Anybody over here have an opinion on which option?
Can we, here?
Yes, sir?
If we were to go with option B, if somewhere down the course of Rob's real busy time, he comes in and he could use some extra, would there be something in the budget where if he needed to up that part-time a little bit, he could do that? I think if we had to a little bit, to give him a few more hours, let's say he hit a couple months that's just crazy, and
Right, that's always an option if it comes summertime, that May, June, July period, somewhere in there, that Rob's overwhelmed and needs additional help. We certainly can sit down and reevaluate at that point and see how the revenue's coming in, how expenses are coming in, and see if it makes sense at that point to spend the extra money to bring that employee on for some additional hours. That's always something we can look at.
I think, though, that I'm optimistic that once we had a part-time person that's dedicated to doing this for 10 hours a week, we're going to get on top of it, and we're going to be able to stay on top of it. Like you said, Steve Prenny was here as a full-time code enforcement officer with a full-time building inspector, and he was able to stay on top of that in the past.
And we started to make headway on that stuff, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we have now as well. Like I said, there's just really not enough time in the day to really manage 2 jobs. So with a part-time person, like I said, we'll get on top of it, and we'll be able to stay on top of it all year long. And if, you know, if something falls through the cracks, you know, there is part-time guys, needs a little more help out there. Nothing saying I can't go do it if I have the time either.
Mark, how much do your part-time mowers work during the summer?
We got a motion or discussion? We just
15,
trash news.
They work how many hours a week?
7 hours a day, 35 hours a week.
Okay.
There's 5 of them.
Yep. So we will be better off.
Okay, so we've got, yes, sir?
We're looking at option B. I can see where you're adding a full-time position, you're minusing a part-time position for a total of 45. Where's the inspection person come from then? No billing there at all?
No, the inspection already has in his budget money to hire a part-time person,
Enough to-
8,000 and,
7,500?
7,500, wasn't it?
7,500 plus social security matches.
Yes.
So the maintenance worker gets paid what?
That was already in the proposed budget that we put in front of you, was to add that.
So the proposal in front of us is to add one full-time maintenance worker.
that's what we've been discussing here, option B, yes.
That's correct.
And the-
Okay,
and the
just so
wage-
everybody's
and the
clarified.
hourly wage is what? I see what it is annually. What's the hourly wage?
It was $15.12 or something like that, right at 15, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what a maintenance worker two makes. So,
And that total of 55,500 includes all of their benefits.
yeah, that's what I assumed.
Okay, everybody good with that?
Well, I don't know if there's a motion or we're discussing this, but I guess we're just beating the crap out of it. So I guess I'm going to go back to the thing. I think that we still have personnel that we're not utilizing, and I would have liked to seen a proposal that at least had some discussion that, you know, maybe we could have tried this or maybe we could have tried that, because all I get was this end result that this is what we're going to do. We're going to hire somebody because we need somebody. And so, you know, I wasn't privy to the rest of the discussion. So I guess I'm a little bit out of the loop. You know, I didn't have coffee with any of the department heads. I didn't talk to them, didn't have a phone call, didn't get to chat anybody up. So I get this as my discussion point. So I'm not going to vote for it. Not because I have offended that I wasn't in the discussion processes. I don't have enough information. So.
Okay,
Mayor, I'd like to
Gatlin?
make a motion that we entertain option B and that it would be accepted and or ratified as presented.
Second.
and moved and seconded that we choose option B, which will be included in the fiscal year 16 and fiscal year 17 budget. Any further discussion? And your vote, please. And that is approved 7-0. Beg your pardon, 7 in favor, and Mr. Fairbanks votes against it. All right, now the next item is item C that we've talked about, talking about the sidewalk program. I'm going to entertain a motion, Mr.
Mayor, I'd
Catlin.
make a motion that we entertain option C, add funding for the sidewalk program at $50,000, and that it would be accepted, ratified as presented.
Second.
It's been moved by Catlin and seconded by Billsbach to include $50,000 into the sidewalk program as a cap. Any further discussion?
I think it's a great program. I don't have any problem with it. My concern is that you get to the point where you're at the $50,000, and then we have to go through the whole process again to have a new ordinance, to have more discussion, and then you have people that are in the process and they're waiting. So I guess for me it's just verbiage. So up to this amount, we have the ability to continue it to an additional $50,000. I think $100,000 would more than cover it in an annual year, and we can do that, without. So this gives Tobias the ability to continue the program without coming back to us.
Should have that flexibility.
Right. And then, because then at the end of the year, he can come back and say, you know, we should have budgeted this much, and then we're gonna know. So it's just verbiage. I
Okay.
don't have a problem with the program, it's just verbiage.
Any other comments? Yes, sir.
So are we gonna separate it all, the requests for up to 5,000 versus the grants up to 1,500?
What do you mean, are we gonna separate them?
Well, if we're giving them a loan, are we gonna use that as a different fund, or is that all gonna be
All,
together?
all one fund.
So if we're talking up to 5,000, that's gonna take that away a lot faster then.
Right,
You
in
might
theory,
have 10
yes.
projects versus the 33 we was
Good.
talking about.
Good.
That's
Now, the second year,
my concern.
Yeah.
well, the second year, you'd have the 50,000 in the pot to start with, and then as payments come back in, you'd have that money available to make additional loans or grants with
It'd
it.
be a revolving fund.
I would certainly hope that whoever makes a decision on yes or no on these would give a little leeway so we don't do 10 of the $5,000 projects versus, 20 of the other if we can help it.
Yeah, you kind of want to lean towards the people that are willing to pay all of it themselves, up front. But, yeah. And like I said, it's
I mean,
verbiage.
50,000 is a lot of money, but I don't, like I said, it might not go so far to
Right, that's a good point.
Out.
But without some balance or limit, I would not recommend letting it be a subjective thing. Where
No.
We just feel like we want to have more of these and less of these. I mean, you have to make a line somewhere or state an amount. So if that's what you want to do.
Phil?
For me, for the first year, I'd like to see it just stay at 50,000, get our feet wet, figure out how this is going to work, what's going on with it. It sounds all great and warm and fuzzy, but I don't really think you're going to even use 50,000. So, I think just stay at this 50,000 for the first year, make it manageable for Toby, and let's just, go on from there. Next year, you can adjust the budget if you need to.
Okay. Rich?
Toby, would you have a problem doing it the way that Ted, I kind of like what Ted said. Do you have a problem? Can we make that, is that workable?
I think it would be better if we put in 50 to start with, and if we get close to that limit, we come back to you and say, hey, the program's been really successful, it's being utilized a lot. Guys, we'd like to add another 50 to it and have you guys approve adding additional funds to it. Because if I know if you tell Lynn and I up to 100, we're going to budget in 100 is the number we're going to put in the budget book. Just
We
because.
can always supplement the budget, like we do it when we have a supplemental budget hearing. So once you guys have taken action that says we want an additional 50,000, we could actually have a hearing, so that would be set in the budget. That would be no question.
Does that satisfy you, Ted?
Yeah,
Okay.
that makes
I'm
more
good with
sense.
that too then.
Any other
Because
comments?
Hopefully they'll take the 100,000 and take that stuff, clean it up. Or more.
Any other comments?
The only question that I have, just to clarify with everyone, this is out of the general fund. Do you want me to increase the tax levy any, or just try to absorb both of these options within the revenues as we have them proposed in here?
Stan?
I'd like to see you absorb them if you can.
Okay. I just want to clarify. So, okay.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Your vote, please. And that is approved 8-0. And the last item is option D,
Mayor,
which
I'd
is
make a
utilizing the
motion
Keno funds. I'm sorry, go ahead.
that we add to complete the skateboard park in fiscal year 16, 26,000? 50,000.
Yeah, use option C.
This is option fit for the 16. $26,000, and that it would be accepted and ratified as presented.
Second.
Moved by Catlin, seconded by Kerr, that we add $26,000 to fiscal year 16 for the skateboard park. Discussion. Phil?
Just this for Linda, on what page do we have the Keno Fund
The action
project?
fund, under other funds, if you go to page 41,
Okay.
I'll show you what we bring in.
What I'm looking for, yeah, for the projects, where are they listed?
The actual Keno projects, oh, that's in the capital projects.
Yeah,
Which is
I'm looking, but I'm not finding it.
It's 55.
57. You go to where you see 12-18. Those are our Keno projects. And this year, that we're proposing in FY16 is 50,000 for the skateboard park. And then if you approve this motion, it would add 26,000 to that for 76. And then the tennis court improvements are in there at 20,000. However, we are getting 10,000 back from the school, so that's only a net charge of 10,000 in Keno funds. And then the trails, we had 12.5 from the trail going south, our share of that coming out of Keno funds.
Okay, so if we take the additional 26, we're probably looking at a future budget of 26, 25?
The
Right.
next year,
Right,
we'll
for
have
next-
zero. We won't have anything in the next year, because we're moving it all up into.
No, I
16.
mean, our projected
Oh, the balance?
balance would be 26,000.
Right.
Ish.
It will reduce
Yeah,
it.
gets pretty low. I'm just thinking, next year, there's not gonna be much for projects.
Well, it was 4,000 a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And again, in FY17, we have no other projects currently budgeted with Keno dollars.
Right. So you, in a sense, you're gaining by doing it all in the first year.
Well, and you save the shipping, and you save the labor, because you got everything down there at once to put it all together, and it's a one-time shot.
You know, that could be another option too.
What's that?
Beatrice Plus.
Well, we'd have to put in, Dwight and I talked about that. We could do it through Beatrice Plus, but don't we have to put in an application for that?
We could find somebody to fill out the application, yes.
However you want to do it, I just like to get it done. That thing is used, those kids use it, you see people down there every day on it. And,
What do you guys want to do?
Do you want to put in this, and then if we make the application to Beatrice Plus, and if it's successful, money comes from there, and if it's not, it comes out of Keno funds? I mean, that's an option.
Right.
So
It's all within the capital improvement fund.
Right.
The
Right.
funding source.
Ted?
I just as soon leave it in the Keno funds. I hate the idea that you, although we've already begun it, I hate the idea that we're using Beatrice Plus funds basically as general fund dollars. You know, we used to have Keno projects that were kind of our discretionary fund. That was when we had a lot of money in the Keno. But they were community betterment, community betterment projects that fits in. We used them basically for parks and trail. And now we've generated different revenues of income through the lodging tax and through the Beatrice Plus, and I'd like to see them used for special projects instead of maintenance or general, or money just like comes out of the general fund. I'd like to stay away from that and leave it at the Keno, so.
Any other comments?
That's where I'm at.
Before we vote.
Well, if we got it Keno, let's just keep it in Keno then. If we got it.
Got a motion on the floor by Catlin, seconded by Kerr. Any other discussion? And your vote, please. And that is approved 7-1 with Councilman Phil Cook voting no. All right. That brings us to the end of our agenda, unless there's any other discussion regarding the budget.
I have one.
Sure.
I couldn't, probably just because I can't find it. I can't find in here where we've budgeted any money for demolition property.
Yes, it's in
there.
here.
I'm assuming, but I can't find where, I couldn't find it.
Linda's got the pages memorized, I will tell you
So
that.
she'll get to it faster than I will.
15. It's in the inspection department, is
Yeah,
where we put it, and
that's-
and if you go to page 15, demolition costs, we put in 40,000 for FY16 and 50,000 for FY17.
Okay. Now that you say that, I turned around and I read the page. I'm sorry.
The type's a little small.
Yeah, I don't think that's probably gonna be enough, but, yeah, thanks. As long as, and, it's a vast improvement from what we had.
Phil?
This is probably gonna be more for Mark Keithod, but under page 76 of the capital improvement plan, we're putting another roof on the library. It seems like we do this like every 2 or 3 years, we put another roof on the library. Isn't there any warranty on this roof? I mean, it seems like we just replaced it and we're,
It's been in 96 and we replaced it, so we're on 20 years.
has it been that much long?
Place, not
New
repaired.
library.
Not repaired. When was the last time we repaired it?
What we did, Goosen,
Well, Goosen did that, what, probably 7 or 8 years ago. We did that, but
Okay.
that
Maybe
was
that's
when
what
we
I'm
actually put
thinking
the
of.
gutters
It's like,
on in the, and
it's just like, geez, I thought we just did that.
And that's when we had the guy up there and with the hail
Yeah.
storm, and he said, you need to do this too, and it's taken us 2 or 3 years
years
here to
did
get
it,
it
so we're on
done.
20 years this year.
Okay.
All right.
Sort of like the roof on your house, so you just put it on, you know? That was 15 years ago. Really?
Next meeting of the city council is going to be on Tuesday, September 8th at 7 o'clock. Just to mark the date, it's not Monday, it's Tuesday because Monday is Labor Day. Then there's going to be a work session towards the end of the month on September 28th. If there's nothing else, Mr. Catlin, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mayor, I move that the meeting be adjourned at 7:53 PM.
Moved by Clay Catlin, seconded by Claybaugh, that the meeting is adjourned at 7:56 PM. And your vote, please, and that is approved. Phil, you want to stay here or you want to go home?
Oh,
All right,
hey,
all right,
we have not had a long meeting in years. I want to stay here till 11.
all right.